we can love us without hating anyone else. Buff Nation, what up? BWB, my bandwagon buffs. What it is, what it does, and what it's gonna be. It's your man's Harry Billion. If you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button. Make sure to give me the thumbs up. Right here is my Amazon store. I have Coach Prime and Buff Nation merch. If you like the content, guys, please share with your friends, family, and your co-workers. And if you see something, say something. If you have a tip, something you want me to cover on this channel, please send it to hotTipsForTLPSports@gmail.com. Right on your screen. That's all the business I got. You know what time it is. Let's work. Can we love our guy without hating the other guy? The fact that we celebrate our guy so much, Coach Prime Deion Sanders, is this sending a message that we hate the other guy? And then do we know the other guy? We're replacing a coach. Last year, 2022, the Colorado Buffaloes football team were 1-11. This stunk up the place. That's not us. We are a new regime. We're coming in to make this change. At the University of Colorado, there's been a losing culture here. And then Coach Prime says, we got to get that up out of here, okay? That's got to go. Me on this channel have highlighted how bad the culture have been. The more we talk about those type of things, the more we highlight Coach Prime, you wonder about the other guy. Who is the other guy? And what was he like? What were his standards? What did he do to create that losing culture? Was there already that spirit of losing here before he got here? We can't blame the other guy, right? I've been wondering about the other guy, and I know you have too, because I'm your favorite Liberian. I know if I'm thinking about it, my BWB's got to be thinking about this guy. Do y'all even know his name? If I'm wondering about it, I'm going to dig into it. I'm going to do extensive research. I'm going to go to the Library of Congress and go to Harvard University and dig in. Yes, I'm going to Google his name. I Googled his name. The guy's name is KD. No, not that KD, not Kevin Durant. Not the one that flat Brooklyn. I'm a Brooklyn guy. I didn't feel like he was Brooklyn material anyway. He's a chip hunter. He's just looking for somewhere to go to get a chip. Go get your chip. I hope you get it in the Heat, Phoenix Heat. Anyway, I'm talking about Carl James Durrell. Can we love our guy, Coach Prime, without hating the other guy? Do we really hate him? We know that we don't hate him, but it can feel a little weird. Because I wonder if I would have had Mr. Carl Durrell on the show and have a little bit of conversation with him. Be like, hey man, listen, I need to know how you feel, man. I'd like to just highlight this guy. I want to know who he is. So I want to invite you today. Let's get to learn who Mr. Carl Durrell is, because I feel like we're loving on Coach Prime, but I'm sure Mr. Carl James Durrell has a family, or let's just say if he has a family, he has kids. The message that we're sending, if I was the coach that was hired and something didn't work out for some reason, I got fired, the new guy, everybody's coming in and praising the new guy and how great he's going to make this program, I would feel some kind of way. It's like you leave a relationship. The next guy comes in and all of a sudden on social media, you see them all happy and all over the place. Everybody's raving about how great this couple is. Everybody's like, oh my gosh. You see all her family go on social media and they're raving about how great her next guy is. Oh, he's such a great man. Everybody's tweeting about him. Oh my gosh. The last guy stunk up the place. The last guy made her life miserable. He was terrible. I'll be looking around like, what, hey, I didn't think I was that bad. Goodness gracious. Was I really that bad? So let's get to learn who Mr. Carl James Durrell is so that we can honor this man. We can give this guy his flowers. I feel some kind of way, and I had to be the guy to do this because we can love our guy without hating Mr. Carl James Durrell. Let's go. Who's Mr. Carl James Durrell? Carl James Durrell, born December 18th, 1963. He's an American football coach who was most recently the head coach at the University of Colorado. Durrell most notably served as the head football coach of the University of California, Los Angeles, UCLA, from 2003 to 2007, compiling a record of 35-27. He led the UCLA Bruins to 5 bowl appearances in 5 seasons. That's really honorable. That's great. So all 5 seasons he was there, he went to a bowl game, but did not coach in the 5th after he was fired in December 2007. Durrell was the first and only African-American head football coach in UCLA's history to date. So he made history at UCLA. First African-American head football coach at UCLA. In the 5 years he was there, he made bowl appearances. In 2020, Durrell was hired as the new head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes. In his first season at CU, he was named Pac-12 Coach of the Year. In 2022, Durrell was fired after an 0-5 start to the season, with 4 consecutive 25-plus point losses, being named the worst start to college football season in 65 years. Let's learn a little bit more about Mr. Carl Durrell and what's going on with him currently. The reason why I wanted to highlight this story today is because a news report came out about Mr. Karl Dorrell about his next job. So I figured, I was like, well, you know what? This is an opportunity we should take to give this man his flowers. This one is coming from the Buffalo's Wire. Karl Dorrell interviewing for Washington Commanders wide receivers coaching position. This is from Jack Carlo. Since his firing in early October, we haven't heard much from former Colorado football head coach Karl Dorrell. Most assumed that he would eventually get back into coaching, but it was unclear where. Apparently, Dorrell is looking to get back into the NFL, as Nikki J of the Washington Post reported on Tuesday that the Washington Commanders are interviewing the 59-year-old coach for their vacant wide receivers coaching position. Head coach Ron Rivera's Commanders recently hired another former CU Buff, Eric Bieniemy, as their offensive coordinator. Prior to his 2+ seasons leading the Buffs, Dorrell spent time coaching wide receivers with the Miami Dolphins, New York Jets, and Denver Broncos. Do me a favor, guys. For those of you who are into a strategy, those of you who make connections, I want you to riddle me this story. Right now, I'm trying to give Coach Karl James Dorrell his flowers. The bigger subject is the University of Colorado. So riddle me this story. Coach Prime coaches Trinity Christian High School. I follow him on YouTube. He leaves Trinity Christian. He goes to Jackson State. I don't follow him at Jackson State. He leaves Jackson State in a weird situation that causes a little bit of controversy on the internet. I found out about the controversy, about why people are so up in arms, why people are so upset about him leaving. My YouTube channel was already established. I had no videos on there. I say, okay, this is an opportunity for me to join the conversation and add my voice to this conversation. So I start putting videos out there about Coach Prime. Things work out, and here I am still doing it. Coach Prime goes to Colorado. I start covering Coach Prime. I do a research about Colorado. Doing that research, I find out that my former president, the first woman president on the continent of Africa, possibly in the world, I haven't done the research, to lead a sovereign nation, Liberia, in West Africa, attended the University of Colorado. That's one connection. In covering this story, I'm learning Coach Karl James Dorrell is interviewing for a job with the Washington Commanders, my former home team that I grew up on, the team that when I came to the United States in 1989, my dad, he was a Washington Redskins fan, and he spent a lot of time explaining to me how football works. That was my team until I grew up, got married, and moved to New York. So the Washington Commanders, previously the Washington Redskins, the Redskins name had to be removed because of the derogatory connotation or meaning that it had behind them with the Native Americans. The person that's also working to hire him, that's been hired prior to him, Mr. Eric Bieniemy, is a former Buff who played for the university. He played college football for the Colorado Buffaloes. It is their all-time leader in rushing yards, 3,940 yards, and touchdowns he had 42. He was named a unanimous All-American and finished third in the Heisman Trophy voting during their national championship season in 1990. Mr. Eric Bieniemy has been hired as an assistant head coach and also as the offensive coordinator with the Washington Commanders. Prior to Mr. Eric Bieniemy being hired with the Washington Commanders, he coached very successful with the Kansas City Chiefs. He started off being the running backs coach and then ended his years there as the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs. The Chiefs just won the 2023 Super Bowl with their quarterback being Patrick Mahomes. While Mr. Eric Bieniemy was coaching with the Kansas City Chiefs, there was a linebacker there named Tamba Boima Hali. He was a Liberian that was on that team. Tamba Boima Hali gave $1 million to Gilly the Kid to help him with his music career. Before they had the podcast, $1 million worth of game. It was the same $1 million worth of game podcast that Cormani McLean chose to break his news that he was committing to play for the University of Colorado. And now I'm covering the story and trying to give flowers to a coach that Coach Deion Sanders is replacing at the University of Colorado in Coach Dorrell. Coach Dorrell is now interviewing for a job with my former home team, the Washington Commanders. I don't know what all of that means. It's just too weird of a connection for there not to be something there. I'm a Christian man. I'm not really into a strategy and all of that. There were a strategist in the Bible. The 3 wise men were not following Google Maps. I'm just saying. Maybe somebody can make some type of connection in the comments. Let me move on. I strongly believe that Coach Dorrell's fate was sealed long before he got there. So Mr. Dorrell was named the Pac-12 Coach of the Year his first season. He obviously has a history. Things don't work out for certain people at certain programs. I just didn't want to make it seem like this guy was a loser. The losing culture at CU, he's not responsible for that. one person cannot be responsible for the losing culture. The losing culture was already at the University of Colorado. They didn't have no money and they didn't have no power. He was a successful coach that was brought in to get some W's. If you're just focused on W's and L's or wins and losses, then it's easy to forget the other side of the story. Just like we learned from Coach Prime at Jackson State, and then we learned at Bethune with Mr. Ed Reed. There's a lot of outside forces, a lot of things that you have to deal with other than just wins and losses. When there's a spirit in a place, it doesn't mean the spirit started with him. That's what you got to understand about spirits. The spirit can be in a place and the spirit can start with some other people. When you are at a university, the university has what's called bureaucracy. You thinking you're coming in to be just a football coach and you're going to have access to what you need to be a successful coach. There's a lot of other elements, other factors that you have to deal with. When you are at a university, you have to deal with boards. You have to deal with people who are making decisions on your behalf. You don't have full control of the program. You only have as much control as the boards that are running this university give you. You may think that Coach Prime has full control, but just like we learned, he doesn't from Jackson State. You're dealing with a lot of personalities at these universities, and some of these people don't have your best interests at heart because the boards have to vote on certain things that are going on. The board has to vote. If you want to get something done, if you wanted to make a change with the stadium or you wanted to make a change with certain things, sometimes the board will have to vote on some of those things. So it's not always the coach's fault. A lot of things go on behind the scenes that we are not privy to. We learn that it's hard to bring about change when you're dealing with institutions. Now, I don't know what bureaucratic things that Mr. Dorrell had to deal with. The university and their lack of resources should bear a lot of the responsibility for the losing culture, not the coaches that are brought in. The coaches can't do anything but coach. If you don't have resources, you can't coach. I don't care how great of a coach you are. Without resources, it's hard to coach. And that says a lot about Coach Prime. I guarantee you, no matter how great Coach Prime's ability to coach is, without his star power, he's just like everybody else. It says a lot more about Coach Prime's star power than it does about Coach Dorrell's ability to coach. Coach Dorrell can coach. He's already proven that over the years. In order for you to win, you need some dogs. You need some DAWGS, some dogs, some players, some head snatchers. Coach Carl James Dorrell was a successful coach, being the first African-American coach at UCLA. That says a lot. Colorado is a Power 5 university, so the job is not a small job. The job is not a pushover job. To get that job, you need to have a certain type of record. Coach Dorrell had that record coming in. You come in with your successful record to a program that is struggling to get W's. You now have to play savior. So that losing culture was not his fault. We all remember that first meeting with Coach Prime and the players in that room. The cameras were there, and he's talking to the players. I'm coming to win, and I'm coming to win now. I'm bringing my bags, and they're Louis. I'm bringing some dogs. So you might want to jump into that transfer portal if you're not a dog. Those are the players that went 0-5 and eventually 1-11 that Coach Dorrell had. That's who he was able to recruit with the limited resources that the university gave him. Those players and their mentality, that's what he had to deal with. Coach Prime tells him, hey, if you're a dog, you're a dog. That was the first litmus test. Jump into the transfer portal. Coach Prime was basically just testing those students. It's at a university. So their job was already secure. They were already there. They've already been accepted to the university. Coach Prime doesn't have the power to get rid of those kids. He's just brought in as a head coach to coach the kids that are already at the university. But the kids do have the power to jump into the transfer portal to look for a better opportunity. So he told them right away, I'm bringing some dogs. If you don't feel like you have the confidence to be a part of what I'm about to establish, then you can leave. Jump into the transfer portal. And that's what a lot of them did. So think about the mentality, the quality of players that Coach Dorrell had during his tenure. So it all starts with the recruiting. It starts with that NIL bag. Prior to Coach Dorrell, they're losing. Losing culture. They're not winning any games. Every season, they're losing. Coach Dorrell was only there for 2 seasons. He was successful the first season. The second season, he goes 0-5 and they let him go. The reason why he goes 0-5 has to be linked to the players that we saw in that first meeting with Coach Prime. There's a reason why half of them, almost all of them, jumped in the portal, because those are not dogs. That's why they were losing, because they were not top players. Mr. Dorrell did not have the resources to secure the top of the top players, the 3, 4, and the 5-star players that Coach Prime, with his star power, is able to get into this program now. When Coach Prime came in and he started talking his talk, that's why you see a lot of those players jump in the portal. They now have to go to other programs and play backup roles. It's not a dig on any of those players. It's just that you need top players to win at the Power 5 level. Those players are probably decent players, but they're not the type of players that's going to win you championships. In order for these kids to come to this Power 5 program at the University of Colorado, they had to be good players, but they were role players. They were more role players than they were star players. Look at Popovich right now in San Antonio with the Spurs. Look at the Miami Heat. Without star power, those programs are not mentioned. PDJ, Philip Douglas Jackson. Phil Jackson, put him in New York, one of their winningest coach. Same result, no star power. Popovich in San Antonio, no star power. Program's going down. You see it over and over again. Eric Spoelstra, Miami Heat, same situation. No LeBron, no Dwayne Wade, same situation. You can go down the line and you can take all of the winningest coaches and put them in situations where there's no star power and you would get the same results. So I'm not digging on those players. I'm not saying those players were terrible players because these kids watch these YouTube channels and they watch these YouTube videos. I'm not saying you guys are terrible players. I'm just saying they're always role players. So you need star power and those role players to all do their job together to win you championships. Maybe they had a lot of role players and not enough top tier players. You need a few top tier players with those players that were in that locker room in order for you to win some chips. But Mr. Darrell did not have the resources that he needed in order for him to secure a couple of those top tier players to help these role players that were in that room with Coach Prime when Coach Prime arrived. So it's definitely not a dig on those players. I don't want those players to seem like we're digging on them either, because right now I'm trying to highlight Coach Darrell, some of the circumstances that he may have had to go through for him to be in a situation that we're in right now. 1-11. He went 0-5, and then Mr. Mike Sanford Jr. comes in and wins one game. Both of them together, 1-11. There's definitely a reason why Mr. Rick George went after Coach Prime vigorously. Mr. Rick George went after Coach Prime vigorously because they needed to make sure that they got the right person. It's a little bit impossible to get the dogs in the house when you don't have the record and you don't have the bag. Keep in mind that we're dealing with a Power 5 conference. You're playing a lot of top teams with a lot of resources. So you're either going to have the record to get players over. If you don't have the money, you need to have the record. If you don't have the record, every season you're losing, and then you don't have the money to secure these top players, I don't care how great of a coach you are. There's no way that changes. Ask the New York Knicks and ask the Brooklyn Nets. My teams. Okay? Ain't no stars coming over here. No stars. They're not coming over here. You look at any sport today, any sport from college to professionals. You have your role players and you have your star. You're going to need at least 1 or 2 stars on every team with those role players. I'm sure he tried his best to make the changes that he needed. Tried his best to implement the changes. But if you don't have any star players, it's very hard to win games. It's very hard to win with just role players. And I dare anybody to tell me otherwise. In today's day, not yesteryears, but today, where there are super teams. You look at some of the Alabamas, the Nebraskas. Look at some of these teams. These are super teams. There's no reason why all of these star players should be on one team. And thank God for the NIL, that now the space and the playing field can be just a little bit more even now. These players, they are in their prime. They only have a short window to make their mark before it's too late for them. These players are not trying to play Captain Saver program. They're not trying to do that. Now, Juwan Johnson, he said that he wanted to come over here and build with Coach Prime, because he understands that Coach Prime now has the resources and the pieces in place in order for that to happen. But put Juwan in a situation with Coach Darrell, and that's a whole nother situation. They said it themselves. Some of the players said, we visited the university before Coach Prime got there, but it seemed like things are now different. There's a reason why things are different. It's not because Coach Darrell was bad. It's because they didn't have the resources. In order for you to get the players, you need the resources. Without resources, no players. And no players, no W's or else. Mr. Rick George, the athletic director at the university, said it himself. He said without the resources, they can get some players on the phone to have a conversation, but then once they find out that there's no resources, that lead goes cold. That was the culture. That's what they were dealing with over and over again. You reach out to the 3 stars, the 4, and the 5 stars. You're not able to secure any deals because you don't have the resources. There's not enough money in the NIL bag to secure these deals. We always hear Coach Prime say we don't have no NIL money. Prior to Coach Prime, there was no NIL money at all. Coach Prime woke up the base, and now they have enough NIL money now to seal these deals. Don't think because Coach Prime says there's no NIL money that there is no NIL money. There is NIL money now. That's how they're securing these deals. I dare anyone to say otherwise. With Coach Prime's star power and the NIL bag, they're able to close these deals. You hear a lot of us say, oh, they were losers before Coach Prime, before our regime. Our regime meaning I'm BWB, I'm bandwagon buff, I'm new to this situation. So we're coming in here heaping a lot of praise on our guy, But the previous guy, who is Coach Darrell, it wasn't fun for him either. So that's why I want to make sure I give him his flowers now, because going forward, when Coach Prime starts to win and they start to write the stories, Coach Darrell's name, Mr. Mike Sanford's name, are always going to come up in interviews because they were the regime that was being replaced. So their names are always going to come up. But if we don't take the time, if we're not careful enough to say some of the reasons why there was a losing culture or some of the reasons why the previous culture happened, then Mr. Darrell's name, his legacy can be wrapped up in this whole thing. I don't want Coach Darrell's name to be wrapped up in all of this because I feel like it's not fair to one of the top coaches, one of the only coaches that was able to break through the racial barrier at UCLA, to be one of the first African-American coaches at UCLA. I don't want his legacy or that legacy to be wrapped up in the lack of resources they had at the University of Colorado. That's why I'm doing this video right here, because I am Mr. BWB. I'm bandwagon buff, and I'm going to keep pushing this train. I'm going to keep driving this train down the road, heaping praises on our regime. I'm going to keep doing that. But this video was important to my soul and in my spirit, the way that I'm feeling, to make sure that we understand why the last regime had a losing culture or the last regime was replaced. We're going to win. We're going to turn this around. We can love our guy, Coach Deion Primetime Sanders, but not hate the other guy, Coach Carl James Darrell. We salute you. God bless you. We wish you well in your next endeavor. Hopefully you get the job with the Commanders and you are successful in Washington, D.C., in the DMV. I'm Harry B., and that was the Liberian Perspective, TLP Sports Club.